Guys, how are you? It's Barbie with Two Friends in the Bible. I am coming to you today to give you the some quick updates on some things going on in our little crazy world we got. Going to start with tomorrow. Tomorrow is November 8th, and you guys know that especially if you're in America, you know that tomorrow is our elections day. And I'm hearing people say that they're not going to vote because the elections were stolen, they cheat, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know. That's not what this channel is really about, is to get into all that. But what I do know is if we don't vote, the numbers are going to be so down that they're not even going to need to cheat. Okay, so we've got to go out and do our duty and vote. Okay, that's just my opinion. So, if we don't show up to vote, it's going to make it that much easier to cheat if that's what they're indeed doing. And there's a lot of proof that that did happen, but who knows? But we need to vote, guys. I don't really agree with the not voting. Okay, and just pray really hard today and tomorrow and ask God to intervene in these elections. He did it in Israel. He can do it for us. Netanyahu's back in Israel, back prime minister in Israel. And that was, he had been removed before, but now he's back in power. So that's good. That's good. So pray really, really, really hard for our elections tomorrow. I'm actually going to start fasting around 12 today, fasting and praying. And then I'm going to fast till about 12 tomorrow. I got to take my chemo drugs. So I can't go longer. I've got to be able to take those meds, and they make you sick if you don't eat. So I took them this morning. I'm going to eat till about 12, and then I'm going to fast and pray until 12 tomorrow. So that's always, that's one of the things that Israel, a lot of people in Israel did, was they fasted and prayed prior to the elections, and then it turned out really good for them. Another thing that I've been warned about is to be careful with your surroundings tomorrow. If you haven't voted yet, I'm not saying I've heard something's going to happen. I have not heard that, but you just don't know. You just don't know. And honestly, we should all be always careful with our surroundings, but tomorrow be extra careful with your surroundings. And there's so much crazy going on in this world anyway. We need to always be alert to our surroundings, but most definitely tomorrow. Okay. Also remember, even though I don't feel there's any reason that our elections cannot be counted and we find out the results at night, like we typically have done in the past. However, they are saying it's going to be about a week. I'm seeing different people say give it 2-3 days. I'm seeing some say give it 5 or 6 days. So I say just give it a week, and we'll see when you get the final counts in, which honestly doesn't make any sense. We as advanced as our country is, we should be able to get them in the day, but. Okay, and I heard someone say God gave all the real power in our country to his children. God indwells the Holy Spirit in his children. God gave the power to we the people. So when you go and vote tomorrow, remember God's words. And he doesn't like killing. He doesn't like cheating. He doesn't like stealing. He doesn't like any of those things. So when you're voting, make sure you're thinking about what would Jesus want? What would Jesus do? What would God tell us to do? Who to vote for? Remember that, okay? Be very careful about who you vote for. There are a lot of election specialists out there. They're saying that there's a huge possibility the Republicans will take over the Senate and will definitely, the Democrats will definitely lose the House in the elections. The majority of the people in our country, in America, are worried about inflation, crime, and border control. And throughout the Democrats campaigning and running for these offices, they're not really focusing on those things. And that is what most Americans are concerned about. They're not as concerned about things like abortion and whatnot. They're worried about, the inflation. Um, housing, I think what are the interest rates up a little over 7% now? That's a lot, for a house. When we got ours, it was like 3, so there's just such a big difference. And that's going to make it so hard on people to qualify to buy a home, because it's a big difference in house payment. And so that's what most people are concerned about. They're concerned with the shortage of food. We're eating on 2021's food right now. We're not eating on 2022. And there's a 50% reduction in what's been produced this year. Fertilizer is gone up 3 to 4 times higher. So even when we do get our food, it's going to be expensive because of how much they have to pay for the fertilizer just to keep it going. Not to mention all the food plants and things that have been damaged, burned down, the chicken plants, all the poultry plants, things like that. I mean, if I always buy the organic, cage-free, grass-fed, eggs and stuff. And, we used to pay like $4 and like some change, for a dozen, which I thought was outrageous. But then now I think they're like $9 a dozen. It's absolutely crazy. So that's what they're worried about. They're not worried about these other issues right now. Those are just behind the scene issues. They're worried about right now and surviving. And they didn't run on that. So they're not showing us what they're going to do to fix it. And that's why election specialists are saying, yeah, it's going to be what everyone's calling a red wave. We'll see, um, we'll see. I don't know if they can, and even cheating. I don't know if they could really and truthfully cheat that much with all the people running. Time will tell, right? We'll know in about 24 to 36 hours, about 48 hours, right? Yeah. Today is Monday, November 7th, and it's 9:40 a.m. right now. I reported on my one of my last videos that we were seeing a lot of war command planes, nuclear war command planes flying around. And it isn't uncommon to see maybe one occasionally, but there was a couple of weeks ago where there was like 5 of them. And from what I understand, they're quite expensive just to have flying around. Lately, though, it's been 1 or 2. 1 common, 2's a little much. 5 was a lot. But yesterday, or maybe the day before, they actually had one flying over the Chesapeake Bay, and it went into the Atlantic, came back to the Chesapeake Bay, and it just kind of did, loops round and round and round. And then it went back to Oklahoma. Now, these planes, they're very good to have. They can actually command our nuclear arsenal in the event that our ground control is taken out. So let's say that one of our ground control is bombed, nuked, whatever, they can actually command the nukes from in these planes. So they are good to have. Yes, definitely. But they have been definitely up in the air way more than usual. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what that's all about. I don't know if they have an imminent threat or if it's just a precaution thing. Kind of lean towards more of a precaution thing, but well, I don't know. 3 years ago, I'd have said, oh, it's just precaution. It's just, it's just them practicing or whatever. But in today's world, I'd say, yeah, they probably know something's coming, but we'll see. We will see. And then they also actually have, I spoke about a doomsday plane. It's a plane that if something happens, it's where they'll put the president and some of the staff and stuff on. And if there's an immediate threat, they keep them in the doomsday plane up in the air, and everything that they need to do, they can do. But there was an American doomsday aircraft, Boeing E-6 Mercury, that flew to Spain to communicate with their nuclear submarines. I'm not sure why they sent a doomsday plane to Spain and what that's all about, but we'll keep an eye on that too. Okay, our favorite topic, Russia, Russia, Russia. I don't know about you guys, but I'm like so sick of hearing about Russia and Ukraine. Unfortunately, though, we have no choice but to keep talking about them because there's so much going on that we need to keep talking about them. So we're either going to keep talking about them until the war ends or until they blow each other up, whichever one happens. I mean, until something happens, I think that's just what's going to have to be because, Russia's part of the Gog Magog war. If you hadn't read Ezekiel 38 and 39, I would. Russia is Rosh, Rosh, in Ezekiel 38 and 39. And, in addition to that, Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, they dislike us so much that they're siding with Russia and supporting Russia to an extent. So we have to be really vigilant. Not to an extent, they are supporting them. We have to be vigilant. And when someone threatens to nuke us or threatens to nuke anyone, especially us, but living here, but any country, we have to be vigilant and we have to pay attention because you don't know when you start, you don't threaten nukes. If it's kind of like don't pull a gun on someone if you don't plan to shoot them. Same thing with a nuke. Don't threaten nukes if you're not planning on using them. That's just not, we have to assume you are going to do what you say. And Iran and North Korea and Russia has threatened to nuke the US. And from what I was researching earlier, and don't 100% quote me on this because I only did a wee bit of researching, it takes like 30 minutes from a nuke. Like if you took a ballistic missile and you attached a nuke on it and you send it over to us, it only takes 30 minutes. And that's from ground to us. And I think it said that it was like 15, 20 minutes if it was from like a submarine to us. And as of right now, we don't know where the Poseidon is, which is that big, huge nuclear submarine that Putin has out in the water somewhere floating around. I know at one point it had been spotted, but at this point, we don't know where that thing is. And and I'm sorry, it was called the Belgorod. The Poseidons are the nukes. So from what we understand, it can hold 6 Poseidon nukes. So we don't know where that is right now. So yes, we do need to keep an eye on that in case we need to hide. Putin, it seems the last couple of times he's talked and given some sort of a speech or whatnot, he always mentions about the U.S. nuking Japan in World War II. It's like he's justifying his actions and justifying nuking because the U.S. did it in World War II. And the reason that, the U.S. did it in World War II was because Japan just would not stop. They just wouldn't stop. And so that was the way to end the war. And it did. It was horrible though. But that's one of the things that he just continuously talks about. It's like he's trying to justify, hey, the United States did it, so I can do it. They did it to end the war, so I'll do it to end the war. A big difference, but that's how he's seeing things. Right now, Putin is evacuating Kherson, and it's thought that the reason he is doing this is to get the Russian army out and try to let himself look good. Oh, good, look, I'm humanitarian, I got all my people out. But then waiting on the Ukrainian troops to go in and occupy Kherson, and that's when he's going to nuke and get the people, the army, the military. We'll see. He's kind of hard to read because he's kind of all over the book, but he's going to do something. We just got to wait and see. And then once he does that, then he's going to use that as a threat that if Ukraine tries to take Kyiv, then he's going to nuke them. And, it's like a threat. So he's going to pull his people out, try to look like this great humanitarian person. And then, he's going to get a lot of Ukrainian troops in the meantime, but it's going to be an empty city. And so it's going to be like a fairly empty city. And so it's going to be like he's trying to say, oh, I'm so perfect. I'm so awesome because I did this. And then if Ukraine tries to go into Kyiv, he's going to be like, look, I already nuked this city. Next time, it's not going to be as easy. Next time, I'm not going to evacuate. Next time, I'm not going to give warning. We'll have to see. And another thing that they did in Kherson Wait, hang on. Kherson, yeah. Another thing they did in Kherson is Russia has taken out and stopped all the radio transmission from Russia. So no Russia propaganda, no Russia information, anything like that is going into that city anymore. But now they can listen to the Ukrainian radio. Interesting. Putin also had a phone call with France's president, Emmanuel Macron. And he stated the US nuking Japan at the end of the World War II was proof that you do not have to do a nuclear strike on a major city to win a war. So he's saying the two cities we struck in Japan, Hiroshima and the other one, that they were not big cities and it won the war. And that's what he's saying. And so he's saying you don't have to strike a big city, and that's where Kherson comes into place. A source has said that Macron was very, very concerned about this phone call. And he feels that Putin was definitely insinuating he's nuking. He was very concerned with that. And Putin's right-hand man, Dmitry Medvedev, I pronounced that right, stated that if Ukraine takes back any of the annexed territory, it will be justification for using these nukes. Well, that is what Ukraine's working towards, is getting these annexed cities back. So if this does happen, from what I researched, it only takes about 2 to 3 minutes for a nuke, once it's launched from Russia, to get to Ukraine. So people will only have about 2 to 3 minutes to evacuate. So if you know anyone in Ukraine or even Russia, I would make sure to tell them, because a lot of information is not getting out to the people, especially in Russia. Yeah, you might want to tell them, have that go bag ready, have supplies, have some duct tape to put around the corners of your windows. So if this does happen, you can help stop some of the fallout. And I know at one point I reported that Ukraine had gotten to a bunch of the potassium pills, that they use, the radiation pills. They're the potassium pills that they use that's supposed to help prevent radiation exposure. I know Ukraine gave a bunch out, but I don't know what Russia did. And I know the United States brought several $1 million worth, but I haven't heard anything else as far as passing those out. So I'm not sure what they're doing. Macron did say, though, that if Russia uses nukes, they will not retaliate by using nukes. France has said they will not retaliate. Macron also spoke with Zelensky, and he's agreed to help Zelensky by increasing their air defense. Okay, so the mayor of Kyiv has stated they will be evacuating Kyiv in the event of a complete power failure. I don't know if that's really the reason or not. It's unusual for a country just to evacuate an entire city or town because of a power failure. It's just, unusual for that to happen, for a blackout. But I guess you got to remember too, if that does happen, there'll be no sewage or water. So it could get pretty nasty depending on how many days, weeks, months, whatever it takes to get it going again. So I don't know if that's why they're doing it. They do have 3 million residents. That's quite a bit that they got to get in there and evacuate. So I don't know. Personally, I think it's more to it than that. I think it's probably they know something's going to be going on. When Russia was first getting ready to invade Ukraine, Zelensky didn't tell anyone. I mean, he didn't tell the people because he didn't want this mass exodus of the Ukrainians. He didn't want everyone just leaving the Ukraine out of fear. So he didn't really say a whole lot. And that's kind of what this is now. I have a feeling he knows more than what's going on. Time will tell, right? Time will tell. Another thing is that we do know that Russia has ordered more of Iran's missiles, and Putin tends to like to attack on Mondays when everyone's at work. And so if he's going to attack, it's typically on a Monday. More people are at work, so it's more damage. I haven't heard of anything happening today, but it doesn't mean it has to be this Monday. Then again, now that everybody realizes he attacks on Mondays, maybe he's going to choose a Tuesday. Who knows? But that's typically when it happens. So let's do some really extra praying for the Ukraine and Russia people. It's not their fault. This isn't their fault. They're still God's children, and it's not their fault. Majority of them, it's not. It's not their fault that all this is going on. That would be like if we were invaded. You know, they didn't want this war. They didn't want these things. They just want peace like everybody else, and it's not happening for them. So we need to keep them in our prayers. There was an Iranian Revolutionary Guard plane that was spotted in Moscow a day or two ago, unloading cargo in Moscow. So that kind of lets you know that, yeah, Iran's definitely still sending things over. And I don't really know why this happened. And if y'all have, information, drop it in the comments below and just let me know, because I'm not really sure. But Russian warplanes dropped cluster bombs on a displaced people camp that was full of Syrian refugees. And this was in northern Syria. 6 were killed and 35 were injured. And that was last report. There's probably more. I don't know why that happened. I'm not sure. So if anybody knows, if you just drop that in the comments, I would appreciate it. Ukraine has 40% damaged energy infrastructure or destroyed infrastructure. That's a lot for a country. That much has been damaged. And, the winter is just about there. I mean, it's already pretty cold over there, and it's going to get worse. Ukraine has set up 1,000 heating shelters that can actually double as bunkers while they're fixing this, but there's no estimated time of being fixed. So yeah, it gets freezing over there. That's the other thing too. The belief is that if Russia is going to nuke Ukraine, he's going to do it more like December, January, because the winds blow from east to west, and there'll be a lot less chance of a fallout in Russia when the winds are blowing that way, because it's going to blow it all over. Okay, so that's kind of another thought process too. Okay, so North Korea, Rocket Man's on fire again. Man, that man, I tell you what, he calmed down there for a while, but he's at it again. I reported last time all those missiles he had shot at South Korea's into South Korea's area and territory. And now I think just the other day he did 4 more. Yeah, I don't know what he's up to. Well, he's up to something. We always know he is. Kim Jong-un. Yeah, he's always up to something, but he is definitely shooting off a lot of missiles. So right now you got North Korea kind of battling in South Korea, but also threatening the US. You got China battling. China and Taiwan are kind of quiet right now, but sometimes I'm more worried when it's quiet. I don't know what he's up to. I do know he intends to take Taiwan. Everything in Hong Kong, he said, was completed and finished, because the British had control of Hong Kong up until a few years back, and then China got it back. And so now China's over Hong Kong. So they're finished with all the paperwork, everything that needed to be done in Hong Kong. So more time to focus on Taiwan. And then you've got Iran, threatening Saudi Arabia, going after their oil reserves, all their oil areas, which helps the United States. So it's a slap to both of us. So we'll have to watch and see. But I think right now those 3 countries are watching to see what unfolds with our elections, but also what unfolds in Russia. I think they're waiting to see what's actually going to happen. And then depending on how that works out, will determine whether they're going to follow suit in their attacks. if North Korea does attack, I'm sorry, if Iran does attack Saudi Arabia, I know the US will most likely respond to that. So pray for our military, pray for, just everything. It's just blown out of proportion in this last year or so. And it's sad to watch all this. We had 3.5 years of kind of peace in the world and good 401ks and stuff. And now it's like the complete opposite, no peace and dying 401ks and whatnot. So it's kind of scary. But yeah, I do think the US will definitely respond. In fact, they've already said they would. And I think also my thought process is if by chance we do have this red wave coming in, I think that's going to speed things up. Because if we get this red wave and it's in November, I believe they all take office, like in January. So I think it's going to speed things up because it's going to be a lot harder for number 46 to do things if you've got a Republican Congress. So, and Republicans administration tends to be a little more, I guess, aggressive and things like this. So I have a feeling if that happens, it's going to speed things up. With the Ukraine, Putin, he's still got his britches in a wad because, when the Ukraine bombed the Crimea bridge and attacked the Black Sea Fleet, which apparently damaged about 70% of their warships. Yeah, that was humiliating to him. Humiliating. And yeah, he's not going to let that go down. So that's another thing to think about. He's going to retaliate for those things happening. And he wants Ukraine, and then after he gets Ukraine, I suspect he might go after more. I don't know. Zelensky's Secret Service has been advising him that it is a huge possibility that Putin will nuke. He has still not gone in front of his people in Ukraine to tell them about this. And it's the same thing he did in the beginning. He didn't really tell them about the invasion because he didn't want his people to freak and run. Same thing now. He doesn't want his people to freak and run and, to flee in a panic. So if you know Ukrainian people, it wouldn't hurt to mention to them that that's looking like that could happen. They need to know. Okay, the United States is blaming Elon Musk for communications blackout in Ukraine. The bill for this is $400 million. And Elon Musk asked the US government to foot the bill. And because he's already put like 20 million out of his own pocket. And the US basically told him to off, literally, the Pentagon. There's 1,300 satellites that are providing free internet for the Ukraine. But now those are the Ukraine government, people, everything's gone dark because those are being shut off. In addition to Elon Musk giving them this free internet and putting 20 million of his own money in, now he's got Putin threatening him because he's done this. And it's going to end up costing about $400 million for this. Putin's also said that if he doesn't stop, they're going to shoot down billions and billions of dollars of satellite equipment. I'm not saying I like Elon Musk. I'm not saying I don't like Elon Musk. But even a billionaire cannot continue forwarding this bill. They just can't. It's not possible. You can't pay for a country's internet service. He certainly will not stay a billionaire by doing that. And the fact that he's done it from February to now speaks volumes to me because he didn't have to do that. And I'm sure when he reached out and he did it at first, I'm sure no one expected this war to go on this long. We thought a couple months at the most, so he probably didn't either. But anyway, the US will not pay that. And honestly, I mean, we're sending so much equipment over there and billions of dollars, and now we've agreed to 1.5 billion a month until the war's over. So how much more can we keep doing? It's a sad situation, it is, but I mean, honestly, and as of right now, a lot of the Ukrainians can't keep in touch with their friends and family. So I don't even know if you can really reach your friends and family right now unless you actually made a phone call. I'm not sure. Government can't get communications. It's bad. So now, Zelensky has actually reached out to the UK and asked them to fork the bill. I don't know what's going to happen. But even without having this internet, people can't, they can't communicate with their families. They can't find out what's going on, except for what they're being told. And they need it to run their businesses. So, but if he keeps running those satellites, it's going to cost him about $400 million. And then in addition, he's risking these satellites being destroyed by Putin. So I don't know. New data has shown that 5.5 million people have moved into the United States since number 46 took office, not quite 2 years ago. That's a lot of people, and a good chunk of it is illegal. So keep that in mind. Okay, Iran is still having huge protests. And these protesters, they are clashing with police. I mean, it is just ugly. The fear in Iran of the Iranian people, it's gone. It's gone. They and the Ayatollahs, they're worried. They're worried because the fear of the people is gone. They're getting together and they are clashing with police. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting. We'll see what's going to happen. And then on top of that, the U.S. is believes that Iran is seeking Russia's help on enlarging their nuclear weapons program. The same Iran that said they didn't have one. So yeah, that's what's going on right now, guys. I'm sure there's more. That's just what I caught up on today. And stay tuned. It'll change again in an hour. It's just been the most craziest thing I've ever seen. It's just changing. Keep everybody in prayer. Keep the whole world in prayer. If you have not got your go bags ready and you've not prepared for a nuclear war here, or famine, or just food shortages or anything, I highly recommend you do that. And again, like I've said many times before, if it doesn't happen, you can always donate to the food banks and whatnot. And the food banks are predicted to be closed down by the end of December because they're not getting donations and not getting food. So they're not going to have anything to donate. So if something happens, you're prepared and you're protected. And if it doesn't, all the better, right? So anyway, we love you guys. I appreciate y'all keeping up with us and watching us and taking the time to listen. If you've heard of any new information that I didn't report about, please feel free to send me an email at twofriendsinthebible@gmail.com, or feel free to just leave a comment. Okay, guys, I hope you have a great one. Thank you.